The office fell silent as Sarah Martinez calmly set down her coffee mug and walked toward the armed intruders who had just burst through the embassy doors. Her colleagues cowered behind desks, but Sarah moved with a precision that seemed impossible for someone they'd only known as the quiet administrative assistant who always arrived early and stayed late. In the next 30 seconds, everything they thought they knew about desk jobs Sarah would shatter forever. What they were about to witness would reveal a past so classified, so extraordinary, that even her closest co-workers had no idea they'd been working alongside one of the military's most elite warriors for the past 3 years. Sarah Martinez had perfected the art of invisibility over 3 years working at the U.S. Embassy in Prague. To her colleagues, she was simply the efficient administrative coordinator who processed visa applications with methodical precision, never complained about overtime, and kept a small, succulent plant on her desk that she watered religiously every Tuesday. She wore modest cardigans, kept her dark hair in a neat bun, and spoke in measured tones during staff meetings. Nobody questioned why someone so obviously overqualified seemed content filing paperwork and scheduling appointments. They assumed she was working her way up the diplomatic ladder, playing the long game like so many career State Department employees. But on this Tuesday morning in October, as autumn light filtered through the embassy's bulletproof windows, Sarah's carefully constructed facade was about to crumble. She was reviewing a stack of student visa applications when the first explosion echoed from the street below. Her colleagues looked up from their computers with mild curiosity, assuming it was construction work from the ongoing renovation of the historic building next door. Sarah, however, felt every muscle eye, and her body tense. That wasn't construction. The distinctive crack and reverberation pattern triggered memories she'd spent 3 years trying to suppress. Her hand instinctively moved toward her hip, searching for a sidearm that hadn't been there since her discharge. The small succulent on her desk trembled as heavy footsteps thundered up the marble staircase outside their second-floor office. When the door exploded inward, splintering the ornate wooden frame, Sarah's transformation was instantaneous. The 4 masked figures who stormed into the office, shouting demands in accented English and waving automatic weapons, expected to find terrified civilians cowering behind desks. Instead, they found themselves facing a woman whose entire demeanor had shifted in the span of a heartbeat. Sarah's shoulders squared, her stance widened, and her eyes took on a calculating coldness that made the lead terrorist hesitate for just a fraction of a second. That hesitation would prove fatal. While her coworkers dove for cover, Sarah was already moving, her mind automatically cataloging threats, escape routes, and improvised weapons within her immediate vicinity. The first terrorist never saw her coming. Sarah's years of Delta Force hand-to-hand combat training kicked in as she closed the distance in 3 fluid steps, using the heavy glass paperweight from her desk as a striking weapon. The satisfying crack of the terrorist's wrist breaking echoed through the office as his weapon clattered to the floor. Before his companions could react, Sarah had already pivoted, grabbing the fallen AK-47 with movements so smooth and practiced that it looked choreographed. Her colleagues watched in stunned silence as their mild-mannered administrator executed a perfect tactical role behind the reception desk, coming up in a firing position that would have made her former drill instructors proud. The remaining 3 terrorists found themselves facing someone they hadn't expected. The woman pointing their comrade's weapon at them moved with the confidence of someone who had done this before, many times, in places far more dangerous than a diplomatic office in Prague. Sarah's voice, when she spoke, carried an authority that cut through their shouted threats like a blade. "Drop your weapons and get on the ground, now." The words were delivered with the kind of calm certainty that comes only from extensive combat experience. 2 of the terrorists hesitated, clearly thrown off by this unexpected resistance from what should have been an easy target. The third, however, made the mistake of raising his weapon toward Sarah's position. What happened next lasted less than 10 seconds but felt like an eternity to the embassy staff huddled behind their desks. Sarah's muscle memory took over completely, years of specialized training condensing into a series of movements that were both beautiful and terrifying in their efficiency. She neutralized the immediate threat with surgical precision, her shots placed with the kind of accuracy that only comes from countless hours on military firing ranges. As the echo of gunfire faded, Sarah maintained her position, weapon-trained on the remaining terrorists who had wisely chosen to surrender rather than test the skills of this woman who had just transformed before their eyes from a quiet desk worker into something far more dangerous. The aftermath of the embassy incident unfolded with the controlled chaos typical of international security breaches. Within minutes, Prague police had surrounded the building, followed quickly by Czech special forces and a rapid response team from the U.S. Marine Security Guard detachment. But by the time backup arrived, Sarah had already secured the scene with a professionalism that left the responding officers asking pointed questions about the identity of the woman who had single-handedly neutralized a terrorist cell. As she helped tend to her shaken colleagues and provided a detailed tactical briefing to the Marine sergeant who took command of the scene, Sarah could feel the weight of curious stares and whispered conversations following her every move. Her supervisor, Deputy Chief of Mission Robert Chen, pulled her aside as paramedics finished checking the staff for injuries. Chen had worked in diplomatic security for 15 years and had seen his share of crisis situations, but nothing had prepared him for watching his quiet administrative coordinator transform into what appeared to be a highly trained special operations soldier. "Sarah, I think we need to have a conversation about your background," he said quietly, his tone mixing professional concern with genuine curiosity. "The way you handled that situation, that wasn't standard embassy security training." Sarah met his gaze steadily, knowing that her carefully maintained cover was now completely blown. The woman who had spent 3 years blending into the background was gone forever, replaced by someone her colleagues were only beginning to understand. The truth, when it finally came out during her debriefing with embassy security, was more extraordinary than anyone had imagined. Staff Sergeant Sarah Martinez, United States Army, had served 2 tours with the 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment Delta, more commonly known as Delta Force. Her service record, previously classified at the highest levels, revealed a career that read like something from a military thriller. She had participated in classified operations across 3 continents, earned a Bronze Star with Valor for actions in Syria, and had been personally commended by the Joint Chiefs of Staff for her role in a hostage rescue operation that had never made the news. Her expertise in counterterrorism, advanced marksmanship, and close-quarters combat had made her one of the most effective operators in one of the military's most elite units. But Sarah's story wasn't just about combat achievements and classified missions. During a routine patrol in Afghanistan 3 years earlier, an IED explosion had left her with a traumatic brain injury and severe PTSD that ended her military career. The woman who had once parachuted behind enemy lines and conducted surgical strikes against high-value targets found herself struggling with crowded spaces, loud noises, and the constant hypervigilance that made civilian life feel like an impossible challenge. Her decision to seek a quiet administrative job at the embassy had been part of her recovery process, a way to serve her country while dealing with the invisible wounds of war that had forced her early retirement from active duty. The irony wasn't lost on her colleagues as they learned about her background. The woman they had nicknamed Desk Job Sarah had chosen that desk job as a form of healing, trading the adrenaline and danger of special operations for the predictable routine of paperwork and visa applications. She had found peace in the mundane tasks that others complained about, using the structured environment of diplomatic administration as a form of therapy. Her small, succulent plant, her Tuesday watering routine, her methodical approach to filing systems. These weren't the habits of someone content with boring work, but rather the coping mechanisms of a warrior learning to live without war. The quiet efficiency that had made her such a valuable administrative coordinator was the same attention to detail that had once made her one of the military's most effective special operators. As news of the incident spread through diplomatic and military channels, Sarah found herself facing a choice she had hoped never to confront again. The State Department's regional security officer had already begun discussions about reassigning her to a position that would better utilize her unique skill set, and there were unofficial inquiries from several military contractors about her availability for overseas security work. The comfortable anonymity she had built over 3 years was gone, replaced by a professional reputation that would follow her wherever she went. But as she looked around at her colleagues, people who were alive because of skills she had tried so hard to leave behind, Sarah realized that perhaps it was time to stop hiding from who she really was. The final chapter of this story wasn't about the dramatic rescue or the revealed identity, but about the quiet courage of a warrior who had found a different way to serve. Sarah Martinez would continue working at the embassy, but now her colleagues knew they were working alongside someone who had given everything for her country and was still finding ways to protect the people around her. Her succulent plant remained on her desk, watered every Tuesday without fail, a small symbol of the peace she had found in choosing when and how to use the extraordinary skills that had once defined her entire existence. Today, Sarah Martinez continues her work in diplomatic service, no longer hiding behind the mask of desk job Sarah, but embracing her role as both protector and peacekeeper. Her story reminds us that heroes walk among us every day, often in the most unexpected places, carrying stories of service and sacrifice that we may never fully understand. The men and women who serve in our military's most elite units don't simply disappear when their active duty ends. They find new ways to serve, protect, and honor the values they swore to defend. These stories of quiet heroism and hidden service deserve to be told and remembered. If you've been moved by Sarah's journey from the shadows of special operations to the front lines of diplomatic service, please subscribe to our channel for more stories that honor the courage, sacrifice, and ongoing service of America's military heroes. Their stories matter, their service continues, and their dedication to protecting others never truly ends. It simply finds new forms and new missions. Hit that subscribe button to join us in celebrating these remarkable individuals who continue to serve long after they've hung up their uniforms.